Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania. How's your day? I hope it's going well. It's time to talk about a News24 report that really needs some attention here. Now, News24 is trying to do some fact-checking on Dr. Frans Cronje, and it's embarrassing for them. Honestly, folks, it's quite embarrassing for them. They really embarrass themselves, to say the very least. But let's go ahead and get into this. So, News24 comes out with a story today, a fact check on Dr. Frans Cronje. Please give me a heads up if you can all hear me okay. Make sure you can hear me here. Made a few changes on the studio today, and I want to make sure that you can actually hear me. There we go. It looks like it's working. All right. Well, News24 runs a fact check on Dr. Frans Cronje today in their online edition. Now, they're looking at things that Dr. Cronje said in an interview. So, an interview with radio channel Chai FM, Frans Cronje, former CEO of the Institute for Race Relations, labeled South Africa an Iranian proxy. Now, this story is by Jason Felix. So, like the dutiful state propagandist, News24 has rushed out to defend the ANC and discredit Cronje. Let's get started with this. First, the first claim that they say Cronje made on the program was, according to Dr. Cronje, South Africa has been fronting an Iranian strategy to discredit Israel. Now, this is News24's fact check. There has been no substantive proof of this claim. South Africa's legal team, arguing at the International Court of Justice, outlined the ongoing acts of genocide by the Israeli government, provided evidence of the presence of special intent to commit genocide, and the follow-through on these messages of intent by members of the Israeli military. Now, frankly, there's no substantive proof that Cronje is incorrect. If that's your argument, there's no proof that he's correct. Well, there's no proof he's incorrect. If you build your argument on the absence of information, one will all too frequently find themselves getting the wrong answer. Intelligence analysis involves analyzing actions, oftentimes with limited information. Also, South Africa provided zero evidence of special intent to the ICJ. They showed social media commentary and utterances by a few officials, which is not official Israeli policy. Is the ANC responsible for Fikile Mbalula's admission that the Nkandla fire pool lie was a scam on the South African people? Think about that for a second, folks. If South Africa is willing to go to the International Court of Justice, say because a few politicians and some junior soldiers record video of themselves on the battlefield, that is the actions of the Israeli Defense Force and of the Israeli government. If they are willing to say that the Israeli government is responsible for those actions and those statements, which they are, and they do deal with it with punishment or censure for politicians, then the ANC is clearly culpable in what Fikile Mbalula had to say about the Nkandla fire pool being a scam, that the ANC lied to cover up for Jacob Zuma. So, hypocrisy, thy name is ANC. Now, using Felix's logic, there's no proof that Cronje's claim is wrong. While Cronje may very well be wrong in his assertion here, News24's case on this claim has no merit. It's simply providing top cover for the African National Congress. Further, Felix strains credibility with two of his own claims. He claims that the government of South Africa has not met Hamas. Seriously? The ANC themselves told the world that they had met with Hamas. And he's claiming they have not met with Hamas. Well, then the ANC lied to us about it? And he also said, as repeatedly stated, South Africa has condemned Hamas's 7 October attack. Only that statement by Felix is patently false. This is what he gave as evidence. In a statement released on the same day of the attack, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, called on all sides to seize the opportunity for peace as opposed to violence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that statement does not condemn Hamas for its unprovoked and barbaric slaughter of innocent civilians on October 7th. Rather, it was intended to accuse Israel, who had not attacked anyone, but was the victim in this case. So contrary to News24's fraudulent claims in their fact check, they're misleading the public. DIRCO never condemned the attack. They called on all parties to seize the opportunity for peace after women were brutalized, genitalia nailed, spikes driven into genitalia, breasts cut off, babies baked in ovens, hand grenades thrown into bomb shelters, the innocent slaughter of people by executing the back of the head. That statement from DIRCO does not condemn Hamas for its unprovoked and barbaric slaughter of civilians. Now, the next claim that they seek to debunk with their fact-checking South Africa is looking to influence opinion against Israel in the Western world so that military aid to Israel becomes increasingly conditional. Fact check. There's no substantive proof to substantiate this claim. Now, here News24 offers incredibly silly arguments to cover for the ANC. Now, the author correctly states that the United States provides close to $4 billion annually in security assistance to Israel, and that the Senate recently defeated a measure by communist sympathizer Bernie Sanders that could have hampered aid to Israel. But Cronje never claimed the ANC was effective in trying to influence opinion against Israel, only that, in his opinion, they are trying to influence opinion. So News24 claims that because Israel, or because South Africa has not been effective, that they're not trying. It's a ludicrous argument. It's not a fact check. A fact check would be the other day when one of my commenters in my video accused me of using bias to define an embargo versus a blockade. I use the definitions widely accepted in political science by leftists and people on the right about what a blockade is and what an embargo is. Those are facts. Cuba is not under a blockade. It's a lie by the ANC, and it's a lie by the commenter on my post. People who don't like facts. That's a fact check. You can fact check me on that, and you go look up the definition of a blockade. A blockade is an act of war, actively preventing trade from reaching another country. That's a blockade. An embargo is your decision not to trade with another party. That's an embargo. I correctly stated those definitions. That's a fact. But the left doesn't like facts, and News24, carrying water for the corrupt ANC, doesn't like the facts. Their argument that because the U.S. has not stopped, and by the way, the fact that the U.S. gives $4 billion annually to Israel isn't germane to this moment. It isn't germane to the actions of the ANC in the past few months trying to influence global opinion. This is just nonsense by News24. If you want to say, let's make a what if. If the U.S. government had proposed giving Israel $10 billion and 3 battalions worth of Apache attack helicopters immediately. If that measure had gone to the Senate and been passed, then they might be able to make the claim that, well, Israel's not trying to influence them. But that's just silly. That's not happening. You can't claim that long-established trade is a consequence of the Camp David Accords in 1978, which happens annually, giving security assistance to Israel and to Egypt, that the fact that that occurs and has occurred for the past 40 years is evidence that South Africa is not trying to influence events. That's just utter nonsense. Again, Frans Cronje did not claim that the ANC was effective in trying to influence opinion against Israel, only that in his opinion, they are trying to influence opinion. And he's correct. They got Bernie Sanders on their side. Now, reading how News24 tries to fact check the opinions of a successful, learned, PhD professional is actually comical, ladies and gentlemen. The next claim they go after. South Africa's submission on Israel's alleged genocidal conduct at the ICJ was a brilliant display of stigmatization and propaganda. Now, that's Frans Cronje's claim. In order to fact check him, this is what they say. According to Zane Dangor, Director General of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the action by South Africa was urgent, given the general failure of the institutions of global governance to stop the killing of Palestinian people. Now, this final fact check is puzzling. It's, again, a statement of opinion. This author relies on the foreign ministry of the very ANC government whom Cronje is criticizing to refute Frans Cronje's analysis. Is that not comical in the least? Is that not comical in the least? There's no evidence there. That's an opinion from the government that's being accused of being biased in favor of Hamas and of going illegitimately to the ICJ. They're offering an opinion which News24 carries as a fact. Now, there's a few problems with this fact check. First, does anyone really think that we can believe Durko's claim that this was an urgent action? When Durko went on holiday after delivering a note verbal to the Israeli embassy, whom they've repeatedly threatened to kick out of Pretoria since October. They've threatened to close the Israeli embassy. They've already called the Israeli ambassador for démarche. They've harassed the Israelis. They send a note verbal and then leave town. And we're supposed to believe their credibility that this was urgent? Urgent over the Christmas holidays? Why wasn't it urgent on October 30th, on November 1st, on November 15th, November 25th, November 30th, December 1st, December 10th, December 15th? It was only urgent when Durko fabricated an urgency by sending a note verbal to the Israeli embassy and leaving town and not answering Israel's response. The South African claim of urgency is a red herring, and Cronje's analysis is spot on. On the other hand, the author, Felix, needs to return to university and discover critical thinking and take a few courses in reasoning analysis. This is just a joke, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute joke. News24 seeks to undermine the credibility of Dr. Frans Cronje over his opinions about what Israel is up to. This is comical. I mean, this passes for journalism? Listen, let me tell you something right now. When you see fact checkers, you should know already, propaganda. I have not seen a fact checker yet that is objective about fact checking. All fact checkers are designed to demonize centrist, falsely attack people on the political right, and lie about what governments are doing. The New York Times, the Washington Post, here News24, fact checkers. More like fraud perpetrators, not fact checkers. News24's basis for fact-checking Frans Cronje is comical, it's ludicrous, it's juvenile. Teaching university at undergraduate level, had a student come to me with a paper making these arguments, they would have gotten a failing grade. And Felix gets a failing grade, as does News24. This is pathetic, it's incorrect, it's ludicrous, and it's just unbelievable that they get away with this. News24, the best-known news organization in South Africa, based right there in the mother city of Cape Town, and this is the nonsense that passes for journalism. Now, they wouldn't take a published author like myself, who does cogent analysis and fact-based analysis, and has 30-plus years of intelligence experience as a journalist at their organization. I don't know who Mr. Felix is, but Mr. Felix needs to return to university, and not one in South Africa, because clearly they're not providing a decent education. If he got his education abroad, he might want to get his money back. Unbelievable. Let me run through this again very quickly, folks, these claims, and I'll debunk them very quickly by News24. This is utterly ridiculous, to say the very least. News24 says there's no substantive proof to the claims by CEO Frans Cronje, the ex-Institute for Race Relations CEO Frans Cronje, about South Africa and Iran. They said they just don't hold up. Now, Cronje labeled the ANC a proxy for Iran. Yep. And they say there's no evidence to that claim. Well, quite frankly, they offer no evidence to the contrary. What Frans Cronje is offering you is analytical commentary based on his experience, his analysis as a learned professional. And his opinion is his opinion. He did not state unequivocally or point to something and lie. But on the contrary, News24 offers things as facts that are factually a lie. For instance, Felix strained credibility with two of his own claims here in defending the ANC. He said that the government of South Africa has not met Hamas. Are you serious? We saw the ANC themselves tell the world that they have met with Hamas since October 7th. He also said, as repeatedly stated, South Africa has condemned Hamas. They did not. I read the statement that he uses as evidence. This is not evidence. And once again, in a statement released on the same day of the attack, October 7th, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation called on all sides to seize the opportunity for peace as opposed to violence. That statement, ladies and gentlemen, does not condemn Hamas for its unprovoked and barbaric slaughter of innocent civilians. That was a statement designed entirely to obscure what was happening, to obviate, to mislead, to misdirect. Israel did not attack Hamas on October 7th. In fact, the army was so slow in responding in most places that the slaughter continued for well over 24 hours. So the response from Durko does not condemn Hamas, as the author claims. That's pure fiction. He's fact-checking an opinion and then giving false statements that simply aren't true. This is the world we live in. An absolute bat crap crazy world, ladies and gentlemen. Hamas attacked Israel. Durko did not condemn Israel or Hamas on October 7th. That's a statement of fact. That's reality. And News24 wants it covered up. And the problem is this. Tens of thousands, I won't say hundreds of thousands because I can't even confirm that many people actually read News24, but tens of thousands of South Africans will read this, especially leftist, liberal, white South Africans, and they'll believe this garbage without doing for one moment a search of News24's site to find the stories in which News24 itself reported on the actions of the ANC and of Durko. They won't even take a moment to do that. They'll just believe what other people say. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe my analysis here. You don't have to believe me refuting News24's propaganda covering for the ANC. You could say that I'm just biased against News24. I'm not. I report fairly on News24, not biased. There's a few people at News24 that really need their heads checked, but I don't mistreat News24. I rely on them as a source of news from South Africa, like many people do. But this is garbage. You don't have to believe me. Read it for yourself. Go there and read it. Take a look at what they come up with. It's absolute, utter nonsense. This is a disgrace. This is the state of journalism today. Meanwhile, people that know what they're talking about, people that treat information reasonably and fairly, are shadow banned and are consigned to the dustbins of history by social media tech titans in collusion with the media. A disgrace, an absolute disgrace. When talented people like Larry Elder are called the blackface of white supremacy by the Los Angeles Times, you know that journalism is dead. When you see News24 do fact-checking of Dr. Frans Cronje, claiming his opinions are factually incorrect, when he offered an opinion that does not need evidence, simply a convincing argument, which can provide evidence, but they don't attack any evidence he provides or does not provide. They simply provide their own evidence, which is not evidence. It's opinion. And they offer the government itself to refute Cronje with their own opinion, the government's opinion. It's just comical to say the very least, folks. This is what passes for journalism today. News24 should be ashamed of itself. Interest of full disclosure, I am a paying subscriber to News24. I'm a paying subscriber to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, also to the Epoch Times, and many other publications. Why? Because as an independent journalist, I need to read these publications to see this garbage and expose it for the public so you can decide for yourself. Again, you don't have to trust me. You don't have to believe me. Go look it up for yourself. And if you don't want to, then you can believe me, because what I said is correct. I read his own statements. The statement, this is what's so comical about it, ladies and gentlemen. The author offers a statement in which he makes a claim that is simply not true. Okay, we can play the game about maybe South Africa did meet with Hamas, but we know they did. They said so. But this one here. In a statement released on the same day of the attack, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation called on all sides to seize the opportunity for peace as opposed to violence. Now, he claims that the ANC condemned Hamas in that statement. Do you hear a condemnation of the barbaric attacks of Hamas? I don't. He says they called on all sides to seize the opportunity for peace. That is not condemning Hamas. So in his fact-checking, he introduces fraudulent lie. It's just deception. People ought to be smart enough to be able to think for themselves and come to the same conclusion that I just came to. There you go, folks. There you go. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in for this broadcast. I'm going to wrap it up here. It's a short one about News24 and its attack on Frans Cronje with their fact-checking. Stay tuned. This will direct you to my news program, which should have started 4 minutes ago, but I'll get started in just a couple minutes right here on Chris Wyatt Africa. Thanks for tuning in, folks. God bless. Have a good day, and we'll see you shortly right here. You'll be directed right back to the channel if you hang around, and you'll catch the news today on a Friday. A leka Friday. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. We'll catch you shortly. Appreciate you being here. God bless, and be safe out there. It's snowing here in central Pennsylvania. What's it doing in your neck of the woods?